Well, here we are. I kind of wanted to do a little bit of an update video here on the precision adjust from WorkSharp. It's hard to believe, but looking at my spreadsheet, I've gotten dangerously close to sharpening 195 knives with this thing. Now, most of those I have set the bevel previously on the WorkSharp Ken Onion with blade grinding attachment, just to kind of take off a little bit of the bulk. But yeah, so I mean, this thing's held up all right, depending on the angle at which you may accidentally hit with that. There's that. So you do kind of need to watch out for some thinner knives if you're going for a super low bevel. But I mean, if you stick into 20 or 18 or something like that, then you probably wouldn't have much issue with that at all. I just kind of run into it a little bit when trying to perfectly decide which angle that I want to go for when I'm trying to do like a 15-degree angle on some super steels and stuff like that. Now, after all this time, the gear thing is absolutely rock stable, so I don't really have any problems there. And the magnetic part here, perfectly fine. Something that can happen and has happened with mine is if you loosen this up a little bit, these guys will actually come out of their holes. It's not really a big problem. Just kind of slap the knife back in there. The rubber on the jaws is held up super great, so that's perfectly grand. Don't really have any problem with the slide at all. I do kind of wish there was just a little bit more texture on there, like possibly remove this and just have some like a more matte finish, or maybe like an orange peel finish or something like that. That would actually be kind of nice. That way you can kind of grab onto it with the backside, and then your thumb won't be slipping around a little bit. But that's just kind of a nitpick. It's kind of neither here nor there. Now you see I have two of these things. This one is actually an aftermarket thing. And boy, if I can't remember exactly, there's a YouTube channel associated with it, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is at the moment, but I'm sure probably some of y'all know. But yeah, this is basically designed, it's a 3D printed thing, basically of the same sort of things here, that you can use different, what's the word, lapping films on, without having to constantly put them on and take them off of the ceramic piece. So there's that. And I really do like this little addition right here. You do have to be a little tiny bit careful. I haven't cut into it at all on any of these, but I can certainly see that that might be a possibility of something that might happen. And yeah, so I'm still using the same 600 grit diamond stone. It's it's still serving its purpose. Maybe a little bit of abrasive gone on there. The ceramic's still perfectly fine. You can just kind of clean off any of the stuff there. Most of it's surface, so you can just kind of clean that off with a little bit of water, or more often than not, I use just basically spit and a finger. But that's might be kind of gross for some people, especially those who haven't done any natural stone sharpening before or anything like that. The problem that I end up having that I will have to say has a caveat here is the 320 grit. For one, I wish they had a bit lower grit option that you can get, like a 220 or something like that. Maybe a 250. I don't know. Whatever is kind of easier for them. Here's the thing. This is certainly not the first one. And you can certainly see that because I've kept a lot of the extras. Now these are all 320s that I've purchased, used up, and then I've kept them around. And I've also recycled a couple of them because, well, they are just stainless steel with diamond crap on there that will end up burning off during the recycling process, probably anyway, when you're melting the steel back down. So, I've sharpened 109 or 188 knives on this thing, and I'm on my 12th of these 320 stones here. And that's because these are the ones that you're basically establishing that burr with. Once you've established it with that, you move on to the 600 to kind of work that a little bit, basically snap most of it off. You do a little bit of honing on your ceramic, in which the burr is probably already gone, or at least it should be. And then, I polish them up to mirror polish. I use some silicon carbide one that's 10 micron or something like that to start with. And then generally I can move on to aluminum oxide at sorry, this is 1 micron and half micron if I remember right. But I don't know, I would have to check my sheets and stuff like that. I still have one or two of the diamond lapping films that came from the KME. Boy, they are not cheap to purchase on their own, which is probably why they end up charging a whole lot for them, like $18 for a strip of like 6 and the little soda lime glass thing for it. But yeah, that's something that you probably do need to be aware of if you're going to do a lot of sharpening, or at least a lot establishing sharpening on this guy, is you will be going through a lot of these. The upside, these things are readily available online through WorkSharp. They are, either $7 or $8 a piece, so they're actually not terrible as far as replacing them goes. And yeah, they are a little bit cheap, but they do have kind of some coupon codes that work to kind of get a little bit of free shipping, because, well, these things are small enough, they generally end up shipping them to you in a little envelope anyway. Let's see. Yeah, so the one that I put on here, just recently I've sharpened 2 knives with. So it's probably still got another, I would say probably 10 knives in it before it starts doing some bad things as far as not actually doing a very good job of sharpening. Now, these things still do have some abrasive on there, and it's kind of why I've held on to them. Some of them can be pretty useful here for some rigid sanding sticks if you're working with wood or something like that, or taking a burr off of some metal parts and whatnot. That also works pretty well. But they're no longer anywhere near 320 grit. You still can probably sharpen a knife with this, but if you're talking about just a standard D2 knife, trying to establish that that burr on both sides, they'll probably take a couple hours, and I'm not joking about that, to be able to get there. So they do wear out, and fairly quickly. They do, of course, have those that I was talking about on the website. Right here I have, this is a brand new one, still has the 3M adhesive on the back, and another one, because I usually buy like 3 at a time. And then I did decide on this last order that I would pick up an extra 600 grit. I haven't really had too much problems with mine yet, but after almost 200 knives, it could probably stand to be replaced fairly soon anyway. The ceramic, I know those things really do last a very, very long time, but they are available as well in case you do something like drop this, because ceramic's very, very brittle. That's why it's so hard. That's generally why you don't want most knives to have a crazy, crazy high hardness, because they'll just chip and crack on you and everything. So yeah, I have run into there's a couple of times in which I've had kind of some squeaky noises as this whole thing is established and working on it. You can probably kind of hear that just a little tiny bit, and it only happens here and there. And what I've ended up doing, kind of throwing a little tiny bit of lube just basically on the rod, and then working it through and whatnot. That did help out a little bit with that for a little bit, and it really depends on what you use. At first, I wanted to use lithium grease because, well, it's a decent enough lubricant that they use a lot in the automotive industry, and they also use it for the gear motors on CD-ROMs and other optical drives. So I kind of thought that at first, and that added so much friction that it was just not a good idea. So I moved on to using some knife lube. I've, tossed a little tiny bit of KPL on there. I've also used Benchmade Blue Lube and whatnot. And that works for a little bit. But once it does kind of start to gum up a little bit, you really do want to clean everything off. But by that point, you generally don't have that little squeaky sort of thing going on there. But yeah, a lot of times if I am going to completely do a clean on this thing, these caps do come off, and that helps you actually get a little spudger or whatnot under here if you do want to peel one of the stones off if you're replacing them. But yeah, you can just take a pipe cleaner and just kind of run it through there. It's the perfect diameter for that to clean any of that sort of stuff. And because it's plastic on the inside, generally you're probably going to want to use a soft pipe cleaner. The ones without the little metal flecks that come off and anything, just because that could possibly scratch the inside of there and might exacerbate a problem. But, also might not. It just depends on how vigorous you are with it. The other thing that I have run into on here, and it's a little bit more difficult to notice all the time, but yeah, you can end up, if I get the angle right, yeah, you can end up with a little bit of scratches above kind of where you want to be. That's something that I had affectionately referred to as KME rash here in the past. And a lot of it happens basically the same way as you're coming in with the stone or whatnot. If you're not paying enough attention or whatever, you can actually tilt this up one way or the other, and that kind of gets the edge of it that will scrape there and can possibly hit above the edge just a little bit. But this does seem to minimize it a little bit more than the KME, just due to the narrow width of these stones, whereas these are, half-inch wide, whereas the KME stones are a full inch wide. So when you do that, it can scratch up a larger area. This isn't, the absolute worst one I've ever ended up with, but it was the one that I had found basically on hand that has a little bit of that. And yeah, it's basically just cosmetic, but what are you going to do? It doesn't necessarily bother me, but if it does bother you, I can say, something that I think WorkSharp has mentioned before, and probably others for the KME and other clamp-based guide systems, is you might want to basically throw some tape, some either scotch or not scotch, but like painter's tape, gaffer's tape, something like that, over areas that you don't actually want, like, right behind the shoulder or something like that. And that would probably help out. Like I said, though, it doesn't happen all the time. The only difficulty I've ended up running into is not really being able to feel it when it's happening. So I will basically, a lot of times, I'll go 2 passes on one side of the blade, and then I'll flip the knife and then do 2 passes on the other side of the blade and just kind of do that back and forth. That's easy way for me to keep everything kind of the counts correct, so I keep the actual grind very much persistent and the same there, instead of having something super lopsided. And yeah, it'll just surprise me sometimes. I'll flip it over and go, oh, there it is. Nuts. But yeah, I suppose if maybe, you are just a little bit more careful, then, that's a thing. Yeah, it does have the button in the back that will allow you to flip the knife. Now, I basically never end up using this on a table. I'm usually sitting at a couch or something like that. I got it sitting there. I have my hand in the back, and we got the rod all hooked up here and everything. and I'm just sharpening along. If I want to change my grip, I can put it over onto the top of it here, where the little knob is, just to kind of change that up. And yeah, it does a fantastic job. It makes a very, very consistent edge. I really do like the worm gear on there. And I mean, overall, besides the 320 grit stones, everything seems to hold up quite well. I haven't lost yet the little rubber gasket thing that goes over the end of the rod there. That basically stops this travel in this direction so it doesn't just come off the end of the rod. But I've gotten really darn close. I do kind of wish that maybe they would include, a little baggie of like 4 or 5 extras of those in there. But that being said, almost always I'm using the full length of it, so I still do have another one down here at the other end that I suppose I could salvage if I absolutely needed to. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts now that I've sharpened an immense amount of knives with them. But yeah, I've done a couple of pictures and stuff like that on Instagram in the past using my shiny little best tester here. And yeah, once I've actually sharpened these guys up and done the whole polishing lapping thing on a particular knife, and then give it a couple of passes on a leather strop or something like that, I'm usually getting around 115. That seems to be kind of the average that I'm getting here. That does depend on the angle of the grind, and that's for like 15-degree angles. So the stuff that I do with super steels like M390, S90V, M4, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it does a fantastic job of doing that, making it all sorts of what's the word for it? Consistent. Yeah, that's the ticket. But yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts now that I have used this thing for quite a few months and put initial edges on a whole bunch of knives. And yeah, it does a really good job. There's one thing that I have noticed that probably won't affect a whole lot of people, but for the people that it does affect, they're probably already well aware of it. If you are trying to sharpen a flexible boning or a fillet knife, it can be very, very difficult to do that with, well, heck, most things. But yeah, the clamp-based systems will do that because, if you are putting basically consistent pressure, you're fine here, and you're flexing the blade way off over at the tip. So you have to, basically adjust how much tension you're putting on depending on how far away on either side you are from the clamp. Hey, that's going to happen with a whole lot of stuff. There's also another finesse to trying to do that freehand with stones, which is probably why a lot of people end up sharpening them with, flexible belt systems, because it's a little bit easier to compensate for all that stuff. And it also does kind of put that apple seed kind of edge on there that tends to last just a little bit longer anyway. But alright, yep, that was fun. This video actually went on a lot longer than I was originally anticipating, but I guess I had a couple of things to say. So, alright, well, I appreciate y'all for watching. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo. Subscribe.